This is a year to remember. It's a year to tell your children about, your grandchildren, one they'll talk about in 100 years. You and I have a chance to say, we were there. We participated. Back in 2023, an historic year that set Australia on a new path to healing, and when we became united as a people. We did the work. We took the time to read and listen, to hear and consider, to be an active citizen, to combine our love of Australia with our respect and admiration for the traditional owners of this land. When we look back, we'll say that it took courage, yes. Well, all good things in life take courage. They ask us to be better tomorrow than we are today, and that takes effort and application and a commitment to stay on course when others try their damnedest to obscure what is right and just. But above all, we will look back with pride and say, I was one, I am one, who brought us together. I am a unifier. Our grandchildren will remember us with pride. That 2023 generation had the courage to do better, to break the cycle. They stood up when it mattered. They inspired us to be more. We are those Australians who reject the division and believe in togetherness, who are prepared, fully prepared, to confront the dark parts of our history and to bring the light. Reconciliation, the Uluru Statement, the voice to Parliament are the light. A light where there seemed no way out of the darkness, not for First Nations, nor for us, because we are tied together since that moment in 1770. One way or another, we will all rise, or we will all continue to fall. Together. We can be light bearers for a people who were told that they didn't exist. Imagine. A people who had survived and thrived for millennia on this soil, one day told they weren't human. Lives lost, massacres unspoken, martial law declared, bodies buried and burned, skulls and remains taken. We said sorry for the stolen generations, but still, no sorry for this. So many lives taken, and still waiting for justice. It's been 253 years and counting, day by day. It's up to us to stop the clock, to alter our path, to work together. We can recount the tens of thousands of ways that wrongs have been committed against First Nations peoples. But all we need do is look at the jails, the most incarcerated people on earth. That cannot be right. And it cannot continue. This year is our chance to vote for change. Imagine if your great-grandmother and father had been massacred. Can you see them, woken by the horses and guns, their families and peoples butchered without mercy? Can you? That's division. Imagine if your grandmother and father had been placed on a mission, segregated, their basic rights taken, their decisions made for them, where they could go, what they could do, forced into slavery, removed from ancient lands, denied their own culture. That's division. Imagine if your mother and father had been ripped from their parents before they could barely walk, never to see them again, as were so many of the stolen generations. Placed into homes, thrown to the wolves. They were just kids. Just kids. The searing pain that you would feel to your very soul That's division. Imagine if every time a politician needed votes since the birth of the Commonwealth back in 1901, they'd come to your home, your family, your community, and use you as a tool to stir more racism, more distance between us. That's division. Imagine if every change of government, the programs changed, the people changed, the rules changed. For 200 years, imagine being told that your ways are not wanted. And yet it is your people who nurtured this land. That's division. And still, after all this time, after all this struggle, all you want to do is work together. After centuries of trauma, you're still reaching out your hand and inviting all Australians to walk with you. A gracious offer, it's been called. It's far more than gracious. It's extraordinary. An act of reconciliation so powerful from a people so beautiful that we cannot fail to respond in kind. It's called the Uluru Statement from the Heart for very good reason. First Nations have opened their heart, a heart that has suffered so terribly, and they are asking us to open ours. We must respond by making an agreement of compassion, of love, of healing, and of truth. But most of all, a meeting of hearts. Ours for yours, and yours for ours. I was there, we can say, when we voted for unity, unification, a coming together. Like you, I want to be able to look my fellow Australians in the eye and say, I stood for equality, and that no one will ever again be considered less than any other. Not anymore. Like you, I dream of seeing the oldest living culture on earth held up to the world, revered, cherished, along with its people, instead of having to see and hear endlessly about constant disadvantage and intergenerational trauma. Terms that we hear so often that they've lost their real meaning. They've become just words in report after report after report. But they're real. They simply mean people in pain. Lots and lots of pain. And I know you feel the same. A nation with a soul must be founded on truth and justice. There can be no other basis on which to build a society of equals. I believe Australians are just. We have to be if we are to build a future together. But massacres are not just. Stolen land is not just. Terra nullius is not just. Stolen children is not just. Keeping an entire culture invisible without a voice is not just. We believe in knowing the truth of our history. And the truth is setting us all free. It's dissolving the barriers between us and allowing us to see each other for what we truly are. A mirror of the other. If one of us is diminished and mistreated, it speaks volumes about us all. As a country, our true measure is how we treat those in need. And there has never been a greater need than for an entire beautiful people to be heard. So, instead of holding each other down, we can vote to lift each other up. It's up to you and I. We can be the change. My community, the sporting community, are a vital part of this change as well. We say in sport that we are committed to an even playing field and are very passionate about equality, inclusion, about showing strength and courage, about overcoming great odds and never giving in when things get tough, all of which makes Australia one of the finest sporting nations in the world. Well, these qualities are never more important than now. Every week, millions of us hit the sporting fields and dream of being our best. We support each other, work together, strive for the ultimate goal and bring communities together as we do so. And when we watch our national teams play, like the Matildas this year in the FIFA Women's World Cup here in Australia, there's a deep sense of pride and in showing what we are capable of. We'll all stand shoulder to shoulder and feel an overwhelming sense of being part of something bigger than ourselves, a part of this great southern land, this place called Australia. The Matildas jersey will display First Nations art and will have displays of indigenous culture to proudly show the world where we began, where our true roots lie. And they're deep, going back tens of thousands of years. But those roots are in desperate need of nourishment by us all. We'll shout and cry in support of the Matildas as they aim to achieve a great prize. But the greatest prize for us all is to set the nation on a journey to healing and reconciliation. Sport can show us how to go from culture and art, songs and welcomes to country, to truth and justice and a stronger future together. To not just show the world how strong and courageous we are, but to show each other. We can bring the collective will of the sporting community and participants from all over the country together to make this dream a reality, to vote for real equality, real inclusion, real unity, and to show real courage and strength. As a Socceroo, I used to listen and stand proudly for the anthem and believe that I was representing a nation that is built on fairness, a fair go for all, we say, where each and every one of us has the opportunity to rise to the highest we can. But I never knew that First Nations players or people didn't have the opportunities that I had, that they faced barriers that I had not. No one ever looked at me with suspicion, with hatred, with prejudice, with racism in their eyes. So now it's my turn to step up, like you, and decide that these barriers will no longer exist, that everyone on this land will be considered equal, will be seen, will be heard, will be valued. So many of our greatest sporting moments have been achieved by First Nations legends. From Goolagong Corley to Freeman, Rose to Barty, Goods to Mills. And while we scream and cheer, idolise and celebrate their achievements, it's time to recognise that their communities are in pain and that the healing process must begin. All of us in sport have a duty to step forward and help our legends with this necessary change. Otherwise, what is a teammate for? It's time to look every Australian in the eye and say, I am committed to making this country one of equals, and nothing will distract me from this course. Let others divide. They've been doing it for over 2 centuries. But we will be able to say that we made the change. We acted. We brought the light. And we are the unifiers.